Hi, Pastor Gallagher here. Welcome to yet another program here on YouTube of The Victory Hour, brought to you by the Lord's people at Clayville Assembly in Foster, Rhode Island. My name is Jim Gallagher. I'm the pastor at Clayville Assembly. If you want to contact me, info@clayvilleassembly.com. That's my email address, info@clayvilleassembly.com. Takes me a while to get to my emails. I really only check them about once a week. Sometimes I might go longer. I get so much junk email. It wears me out. You can write to me, The Victory Hour, P.O. Box 222, Foster, Rhode Island, 02825. The Victory Hour, P.O. Box 222, Foster, Rhode Island, 02825. Come and see us at Clayville, 7 Plainfield Pike, Foster, Rhode Island, 10 o'clock in the morning on Sundays. Morning service. Can't go wrong. 6 o'clock in the evening. Sunday night. Evening service. 10 in the morning, 6 in the evening. Come out. We also have a Zoom prayer meeting and Bible study Wednesdays at 7:30. And invite your friends to tune in to the Victory Hour here on YouTube. All right, now listen. I'm taking a break this week from dealing with dispensationalism. We'll go back to it next week. Some other problems with dispensational theology. We'll get back there. I'm taking a 2-episode break to vent my spleen over the evil of the Biden administration and the fact that they are given over to reprobate minds and they're driving the country towards reprobation and the hardening of our hearts. We can't let it happen. Now, a lot of Christians don't believe in the doctrine of reprobation. Reprobation is the doctrine where God, as a judicial act of righteousness against the evil of the wicked, he condemns a person over to the hardening of their own hearts, and he no longer will intervene on their behalf. He'll leave them to their own devices. He'll leave them to their own free will, and that never will work out good. And we know this because Jesus said, the only ones that come to him are those that are drawn by the Heavenly Father. Now, if the Father gives you up and gives you over, as is described in Romans 1, which I'm not going to have time to get into, read the whole second half of Romans 1. And God gives men over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient, and that's as a byproduct of their pride, and they're searing their conscience with a hot iron, and God gives them up and gives them over to strong delusion. And in Romans 1, they end up becoming sodomites. One of the marks of God's reprobation. And so I read to you that for the Christians that don't believe in the doctrine of reprobation, why can't God do that? He doesn't owe us anything. He doesn't owe you 1,000 chances to receive Christ as your Savior. He gives us all maybe more than we deserve. But it's by election. I mean, up until the cross, how many people were saved outside the nation of Israel? What do you think that is? That's election. If it's just pure free willism, and all the people with the right hearts that would at least somehow try and follow God all happen to be of the same clan. Get out of here. Enough of the Arminianism. It matches nothing in Scripture. We're too cowardly to believe in election. But it's what's taught in the Bible. Now, God can elect, and he can also reprobate. 2 Thessalonians 2, 10 and 11. We're quoting this last week. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth that they might be saved. So they walk in unrighteousness. They practice deception, which is the byproduct oftentimes of unrighteousness. They are doomed to perish. But because they rejected the truth, did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved, what happens to them? Verse 11. For this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. That is a judicial act of God's wrath. They harden their hearts one day too long. The Lord sends them strong delusion. He sends them. It's not they doing it to themselves. I mean, they've earned this, and they do that to themselves, but this is imposed by God. He sends them strong delusion. that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. That's the Biden administration. I quoted for you from 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 13. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Evil men and seducers, men that seduce others and entice them into their own web of lies for their own personal advantage, no doubt. But these evil men and seducers, they get worse and worse. They don't stay static. They worse and worse, deceiving others and being deceived themselves. That is the trajectory of our own nation. And our leaders are setting the example of that very process of reprobation. I'll give you one more text. We got to get to the things I didn't have time much for last time. Isaiah 44. In Isaiah 44, I know this is scary doctrine for a lot of Christians. Well, grow up. It's in the Bible. Make peace with it. Make peace with it. This is the wisdom of God. But in Isaiah 44, what we do is we have a portrait of those who are in the business of making idols. And we're told by Isaiah just how foolish they are. And boy, it reminds me of what's going on right now in our own country with our own leaders. So these are idol makers, not a good profession. And starting at verse 14, and I'm not really starting at the beginning, it's talking about people who make idols and how foolish they are to do it. He heweth them down cedars. So these idol makers are going to cut down trees, cedar trees, to make their idols. And to do other things. He heweth him down cedars, and taketh the cypress and the oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest. He planteth an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. See, these fellas that make idols, they make them out of wood. He plants trees, the rain nourishes their trees. Then shall it be for a man to burn. Now, he can warm himself by a fire. See, these trees serve a purpose. For a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself. Yea, he kindleth it, and baketh bread. Well, it only doesn't provide just warmth. You can cook on it. Oh, great. Yea, he maketh a god. What? Out of the tree that he planted? Tree that he cuts the branches up and makes a fire? So he can cook his food over the fire? And out of the same trees, he makes a god? He maketh a god and worshipeth it. He's worshiping what he made with his own hands? Yeah, that's the insanity. And worshipeth it. It's like this crowd now. They're hoisting on us this fiction of climate change. Oh, the climate's changing because it goes through cycles. But they're lying about what's happening. And now they'll fall down and worship their own lies. He maketh a god and worshipeth it, and maketh it a graven image, and falleth down thereto. It's insanity, right? He burneth pot thereof in the fire. With pot thereof he eateth flesh. He roasteth roast, and is satisfied. Yea, he warmeth himself, and saith, Aha, I am warm. I have seen the fire. All with his hands, right? He's the master, right? Oh no, he makes a god, and he worships it out of that same wood that he was the master of. And the residue thereof he maketh a god, even his graven image. He falleth down unto it, and worshipeth it. Imagine the guy who made it does that too. And prayeth unto it, and saith, Deliver me, for thou art my God. What an idiot. They have not known, by the way, this is what men do, even in modern times. They're not the same kind of idols. You know, like when someone becomes famous, they begin to declare themselves the greatest things on the face of the earth, and they begin to believe it, and then they become insufferable. Is that whole process much different? They make gods of themselves. They knew who they were and are, but they've forgotten who they are because they believe their own lies. They have not known nor understood, nor have they shut their eyes that they cannot see. these idol makers, and their hearts that they cannot understand. And none considereth in his heart. Neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say, they can't even reason this out. They don't say to themselves, I have burned part of it in the fire. Also, I have baked bread upon the coals of this wood I've cut down. I have roasted flesh and eaten it. And shall I make the residue thereof with the wood that's left over an abomination? Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? Well, that's what he should say to himself. But Isaiah is saying he doesn't have the wherewithal to say that to himself. Verse 20, he feedeth on ashes. A deceived heart hath he turned him aside. A deceived heart hath turned him aside. His own deception. That he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, is there not a lie in my right hand? That's unbelievable. I mean, you see what's being said here. These men, they plant the trees, they water them, they cut them down, they build a fire, they cook food. Then they make a god to sell to some other sucker. No. He falls down himself to worship the god he made out of the wood he got out of his backyard. And he doesn't have the spiritual perception because God's given him over. He doesn't have the ability to say, no, wait a minute. I've eaten meat that I cooked in this wood. I've made a fire to warm myself with it. I've roasted flesh on it. Should I take what's left over and make a god, and then I'm going to fall down and worship that God that I made with my own hands? He can't reason that. He feedeth on ashes. A deceived heart hath turned him aside. He's talking about his own heart. That he cannot, not that he will not, he cannot deliver his soul. Nor say to himself, is there not a lie in my right hand? He can hold that idol up that he made with his own hands and say, I worship it. This will deliver me from my troubles. Oh, great God, he made the stupid thing, and he can't even have the wherewithal. That's how much man can harden his heart. The doctrine of reprobation. God gives them over to strong delusion that they believe a lie. God gave them up to a reprobate mind. Now, I was talking to you last time around about this court case that went against Donald Trump. Now, E. Jean Carroll, she sued Donald Trump, and the only way they got to do that is New York passed a law and only made it true for 1 year, from Thanksgiving Day of 2022 to Thanksgiving Day of 2023. And if you were sexually abused, even if it's way beyond the statute of limitations as an adult, you were abused as an adult, not a child. As an adult, there's a statute of limitations. I mean, if you're going to sue the fellow that did that, you got to do it within a certain amount of time because you got to give him the ability to defend himself in case it's not true. Well, this case with Donald Trump goes back like 30 years. And so they passed a law way past the statute of limitations. So New York passed a law to say, okay, for the next year, if you got 30-year-old cases, and you're going to render the defendant unable to defend himself against the charges, that's okay. But this is only true for 1 year, then we're going back to the way it was. There's a statute of limitations. So if there's other people that are sexually abused and their cases get really old, you're not going to be able to get justice because, well, there's a statute of limitations. We're going to go back to that. But we're opening up for 1 year. Why? To get Donald Trump. I've got the Daily Caller right here. And the title of the article is, E. Jean Carroll admits she helped New York Dems change law so she could sue Trump. Let me read some of this. The Daily Caller. E. Jean Carroll, the woman who accused former President Donald Trump of rape, assault, and defamation, said Wednesday she helped New York Democrats change a state law so she could sue Donald Trump. She helped New York Democrats. She admitted that she helped New York Democrats change a state law so she could sue. How insane is that? Let me keep reading. State Governor Kathy Hochul. Oh, what a horror show. State Governor Kathy Hochul signed the Adult Survivors Act. You go look it up. Adult Survivors Act into law in 2022, just in time to sue Trump for the year he'll be running for president throughout 2023, leading up to the election in 2024. They want to destroy him in 2023, so he can't be president in 2024. So they open up the statute of limitations and destroy it so this woman can get Trump when Trump's running for president again. This is 100% about that. It is the utter manipulation of the judicial system for the evil woke left, like they've been doing with the FBI, the Department of Justice, weaponizing all the institutions of government. We are in a Marxist revolution. Daily Caller. The governor of New York signed the Adult Survivors Act into law in 2022. The legislation allowed, quote, a one-year look-back window for survivors of sexual assault, end quote, to sue their alleged abuser, quote, regardless of when the abuse occurred. Doesn't matter if it was 30 years ago. In fact, the only one we're really concerned with is the one 30 years ago, so we can get Trump. And then when the year is up, no one can do that anymore. Trump was found, reading the article, Trump was found liable Tuesday for defamation and battery, but not rape. Let me just say this. It was unanimous that they didn't convict him on rape. No one wanted to convict him on rape. That was unanimous by the civil jury. Trump was found liable Tuesday for defamation and battery, but not rape in the case, with Carroll to be awarded a total of $5 million. Not for rape, for defamation. Now think about that. Trump said, it didn't happen. This lady's lying. And the court, the jury ends up saying, well, we're not going to charge with rape. Nope, didn't see the evidence. It was unanimous. So we don't have any rape. Well, that's strange. $5 million for defamation? Well, defamation and battery. It was like, a big hunk of that was for the defamation, and another part of that $5 million was for the battery. I got the breakdown somewhere, but it was like $3 million and $2 million. I forget which was which. But $5 million in damages. And wait a minute. How can you get him for defamation? Well, he called me a liar. Well, the jury did not convict him of rape. Now, if they convicted him of rape, then you can get him on the defamation. But if you're saying, well, no, we don't see the rape, we can't do that. Doesn't the man have a right to defend himself? Let's say this lady's lying because she's a liberal weasel and she's a nut. She has given an interview saying, well, rape is, people think of it as nasty and violent, but it's kind of sexy, she says. She's crazy. Look in her eyes. Kind of sexy. The one who was raped. Really? Oh, she's happy now. $5 million. Sticking it to Donald Trump. Double blessing. Wait a minute. So you can charge him with millions of dollars of damages for defamation when you wouldn't charge him for the rape. All Donald Trump was saying is she's lying, I didn't do that. How can you get him for defamation if you don't prosecute him the rape? Doesn't the man have a right to say she's not telling the truth? Of course he does. This is sick. The fact that New York passed this law, the Adult Survivors Act, CNN's Poppy Harlow said, quote, they passed it just a few years ago. No, not a few years ago. Just before. Were it not for that law, you never would have been able to bring this case, Poppy Harlow said from CNN. And then Carroll responds, exactly. I would never have this window this year of having the ability to bring a lawsuit for rape. Robbie can explain it better, Carol responded. And then Carol's lawyer, Kaplan, jumps in. E. Jean actually helped to get the law passed so she could sue Donald Trump. They're admitting it. E. Jean actually helped to get the law passed. Carol's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, said, quote, it passed last year, not years ago, last year. We filed, it was Thanksgiving Day, the first day you could sue. We filed it just after midnight on Thanksgiving. Well, there you go. So they're charging him for defamation when they wouldn't charge him for rape. It's insane. It's the only people in this year that want to look back for sexual abuse as an adult, that happened as an adult. You can go back 30 years and try and sue now. Now, wait a minute. How fair is that? 30 years ago? How can a man defend himself on a charge in rape when it's he said, she said? And Carol doesn't even know what day it happened on. She's not even sure of what year. So the defendant, Donald Trump, has no way of saying, no, wait a minute, she's lying because I've got proof of where I was that day. I took a plane to here, or I was at this business meeting, and he can't defend himself. When you're going he said, she said from 30 years ago, and you can't give the date, that's impossible to defend yourself. Unless you're claiming you were raped in a room and other witnesses are there. You can't place yourself anywhere. This is why there's a statute of limitation on things like this. They open it up just for this woman. They are weaponizing the judicial system. It's pure evil. You know, we're here on the Daily Caller. I'm looking at a screen over here. Let me get this over so I can see it better. This is the comment section. I'm just going to read them in order from the Daily Caller. Here's the first one. So they passed a law to get around the statute of limitations, and they're proud of this? He was not convicted of a criminal act, only criminal liability, which has a much lower bar. And it's New York. This is not a victory for the left, but a grave perversion of the law, and everyone should be afraid. That's right. Here's the next one. I'm doing these in order. I'm not skipping any. Cease and desist any more reporting that CNN is becoming more reputable. That's number one. Number two, passing a law so past actions can be punished is how the comrades do it. The communists is what he means. Here's the third comment. Fuel for Trump's appeal. He was probably just going to claim ex post facto. Laws are not valid. That's true. You can't make it retroactive. And now, her being involved in the law's change just accelerates that fire. She isn't very smart, is she? Here's the next comment. Another shot fired from an old naysayer and Trump hater, years after she claims something to have occurred. It's a disgrace how we continue to allow these sham claims to be raised with the sole purpose of being to discredit the only man who stood strong for America and who, barring another corrupted election, will be president again in 2024. Here's the next one. Someone else. The trial was a sham. A New York jury would convict Trump if the charges were that he shot JFK. That's probably true. Here's the next one. In 1995 or 1996, in other words, she didn't know what year. I'm sorry, but if this actually happened, she would know the exact date like the back of her hand, much less she wouldn't be guessing the year. Because this didn't happen to her as a child. She was an adult. Here's the next one. She changed the laws to get this case going? The whole thing needs to be tossed now. Here's the next one. She had 30 years to help create this window. What took so long? One thing that is so obvious about her, she is smug, self-righteous, and self-serving. I seriously doubt she cares about all other women. As long as she gets her $5 million, she's gratified. Here's the next one. This is one time I hope she stays in the appeals court process for years until she's dead. In other words, so she doesn't get a penny. These are the comments in the comment section. This is why they get rid of comment sections nowadays, by the way. Can't have the truth. So you got stuff like this. I didn't mean to make it all about that, but you got this Biden policy on the border, and they ended Title 42. There's an invasion taking place, and they send 1,500 troops. And what are the 1,500 troops going there? To secure that border? No, sirree. Joe Biden is getting them to play with paperwork. Joe Biden is getting there, sending 1,500 troops to aid and abet the criminals illegally crossing the border so they can get through in a more streamlined way. Ellis Island, I was watching, I don't know if it was like an old ad, like a public service ad, but they were boasting about Ellis Island and immigration in America. They said Ellis Island, at Ellis Island, 12 million legal immigrants came into Ellis Island over a 62-year period. 12 million immigrants legally came to this country over a 62-year period. Under Joe Biden just this year, if the trajectory continues, and I've seen this in several sources on the news, on television, they're projecting that Biden will have 15 million. Now, wait a minute. Ellis Island took in 12 million over 62 years. Biden will take in more than that, 15 million in 1 year. And Ellis Island, it was all legal. They vetted them, made sure they had skills that could be used. They didn't go on welfare. They vetted them by their health to make sure they didn't have any diseases and wouldn't send them back. They had to do all that processing, real stuff. Joe Biden is going to take in 15 million, more than Ellis Island did legally with vetting in 62 years. Biden is going to have them come across, and they're illegal. 15 million, more than Ellis Island in 62 years. He'll do more than them in 1 year, and they're all illegals, and they can have their hands out. We give them airplane tickets. We ship them all around the country. We give them what they need, and the American taxpayer suffers in crime, and the cartels down in Mexico and stuff are having a heyday, and we're financing it. Because Joe Biden is pure evil. His China policies, the balloon goes across America, his family's making money hand over fist, selling us out to the communists who sell us all of our goods, who came out with COVID and then sell us all the reliefs for COVID, and who have control of our prescriptions. And then we watch White House spokesperson, spokeslesbian, spokesfemale, I don't know what you call her. But I think she's there singularly because she's black and lesbian. That's like a double blessing to the Biden administration. Well, there is Karine Jean-Pierre, White House spokesperson. And there she was, and you've probably seen this. If you haven't, just look it up on YouTube. YouTube has this. She stated from the podium, as the spokesperson for the White House, she said that illegal immigration under Joe Biden has come down by more than 90%. Did you hear that? The White House spokesperson, Jean-Pierre, said she called it illegal migration. It's immigration, not migration. She said illegal migration has come down more than 90% under Joe Biden. And she continued, and she said that's because the actions of this president, she said, this president has taken. Immigration is now 90% in more control under Joe Biden because of the actions that he's taken. How big of a lie can you tell the Americans? Do they think we're utterly stupid? No, they know we're not stupid, but they're saying, we're going to change your reality by intimidation and force. And you'll cower, and you'll start to believe what we tell you, and you're going to learn to do that. That's what they're doing. The whole woke establishment is doing that. They're taking us off petroleum, the lies of climate change. They're globalist, woke, Marxist, American haters. God is sending us delusion. Liars who believe their own delusions. And I'm watching Americans begin to swallow some of it. If we don't stop now, there'll be no turning back. Pray for our nation and pray for God's people that we would stand fast for the cause of Christ in the midst of these evil days. My time's up. We've got to go. Back to dispensationalism next week. Jim Gallagher, not promoting it, exposing it. Jim Gallagher, reminding you in the words of our blessed Lord and Savior, you shall know the truth shall make you free.